So Cheryl Reeve proved again today that sentiment means more than ability. That it doesn't matter. Being as good and competing at our best does not matter because we'll win anyway. And we don't need to bring our best team. And not only we don't need to bring our best team, we don't want to bring our best team. That is all Cheryl Reeve has shown in this Olympics. We don't want to bring our best team. You know our best players? We don't want to play them. You know Kat Copper, all-world Kat Copper, who was a game changer today? We want to give her a DMP so we can give Diana Taurasi 14 minutes against the third best team in the world. You know all those good point guards in WNBA this season? We don't want to bring any of them. Why? Because 3 years ago, we benched Chelsea Gray, who was the best point guard in the WNBA, to give Sue Bird her sentiment minutes. And now we want to get her back by starting her when she can't move. It's disrespectful to the sport of basketball. And I'm sorry, someone has to say it. Somebody has to say it. Like, they won today by 20. If you look at the way this game went, the first 6 minutes of the game, and they got taken off after a score. Diana Taurasi and Chelsea Gray played the first 6 minutes of the game. And the commentators were saying, oh, they just rested them. And they were resting. They used the game to put their bench in and rest their players. Other than Stewie and Aja, who didn't play that as many minutes as normal, they played their best players. Like, if you don't think this team played their best players, you're crazy. This is the best 3 quarters. 3.5 quarters the Team USA have played all Olympics. Why? Because Kat Copper's on the floor. Jackie Young's on the floor. 2 all WNBA players. You're 2 all WNBA players. Who else was on the floor? I thought Kelsey Plum's pretty decent, but you limit the minutes of a Jewel Lloyd, and I know Jewel Lloyd's been okay for Team USA. She hasn't been great this season, but you limit her minutes. You don't play Chelsea Gray for 2.5 quarters. Chelsea Gray and Diana Taurasi were -7 on the floor. And you might be saying, why do you keep making videos picking on these players? It's not their fault. You know what? In Taurasi's case, it might be your fault. But it just shows that it was never about bringing the best team. It was never about, oh, we need to make sure we come home with the gold. If you're making sure you're coming home with the gold, you're playing the best team. You're playing the best players, and you're ruthless. If that's all that matters is getting gold, you are ruthless. They have showed exactly what the critics said all those months ago when the team was picked. That this is a club, and they just want to help out, and everyone just wants to help out their friends, and they just want to play everybody based on sentiment. It's not about basketball. That is all the Team USA have proven, because they're never going to lose. And this isn't even about bringing the rookies. Would it have helped? Yeah, sure. But if I'm Ariel Atkins, I'm freaked. A team like Jackie Young, in fairness, has stepped into that role. She was great. A team crying out for a defensive guard through their first 2 games, and Ariel Atkins, who you brought into to the World Cup not the World qualifiers, the Olympic qualifiers, who was well in the rotation, like above Jackie Young, above Kelsey Plum, and above Sabrina Ionescu. Why? Because her name's not big enough. You don't bring her. Aaliyah Boston. Why Aaliyah Boston in this team? Why you bring 6 of the same players? Because Diana Taurasi wants to make it her 6th Olympics. If you want to bring players on sentiment, fine. But then don't go out and say, all we're trying to do is win a gold medal, because you're going to win a gold medal anyway. And by the way, Team USA, you would not have won the game today if you played Chelsea Gray and Diana Taurasi the whole 30 minutes. If you played your starters 25 minutes like most teams do, you would not have won the game today. If you played Jackie Young the 8 minutes she had played previously, if you used Diana Taurasi's minutes to take away from Kat Copper, if you didn't go out with a lineup, it was the bench lineup that won them the game. It was the lineup, the most dominant lineup that I saw was Jackie Young, Kat Copper, Alyssa Thomas, Brittany Griner, and I can't remember who the 5th was. It could well have been Fee Collier. But it does show, if you are going to continually play players that are not playing well, it's fine. But at least be honest about what you're doing. At least be honest. At least be completely honest and say that we are getting Diana Taurasi her 6th gold. You know, we brought Chelsea Gray to the team because, you know, she's been with Team USA before, and we just want to keep this. We want to keep this in house. Like, we don't want to bring in anyone new. You see all those young players that are better, or not even young players that are better, just players that are better, like Natasha Cloud this year. I don't know how much she's been with Team USA, if at all. But the way she's playing right now, she deserves a spot in this team. We're not going to bring players that are like performing. We're not going to bring our best players because, you know, we're going to change the goalpost every time. Because at first we're bringing the best 12. Then it's we're not bringing the best 12, but we're bringing people that went to training camp. And then it's we're bringing people for familiarity. No, you're bringing people. You're bringing You're bringing the players that you think that are in the club. And the worst part about it is you are starting two of them. You are starting the two players that do not deserve, like, based on purely basketball reasons. And don't be saying, like, oh, like, just don't shout the words point guard at me. Or be like, oh, yeah, she's the GOAT. Or she's the GOAT. It's like, yeah. A 42-year-old who is looking every bit 42 years old. And everyone's talking about, the physicality of the game. I think it's a more physical, but there's less cheap shots. It's not a crazy amount more physical in the WNBA. It's just faster. Which is ironic because you have the best players in the world. And when you go to the bench, when you go younger, America no one's going to be winning 20. And it's not everyone being like, oh, America have the depth. It's their bench. Their bench is winning the games against other teams' benches. No, their bench is better than every starting five. Their bench, you have the best two players in the world in your starting five, and your bench would still beat your starters by 20. That is how bad your starters are. Your bench would beat your starters by 20. And you still have the best two players in the world. And you could argue the third best player in the world in Fee Collier. You could genuinely argue the three best players in the world this season are in your starting five. Albeit Fee Collier hasn't played great. But your bench would still kill them. Why? Because of your insistence on picking a team based on sentiment instead of basketball. And look, nobody's questioning whether or not Diana Taurasi is one of the greatest ever. She's probably the GOAT. And you might have said bringing her for a safe pair of hands. But bringing her for experience doesn't make any sense either when if you look at this team, Jewel Lloyd, Kelsey Plum, Chelsea Gray, Aja Wilson, Stewie, Taurasi, Alyssa Thomas, Brittany Griner are all 30 or close to 30. Like, the only players that are, like, not even very close to 30 are Collier, Jackie Young, and Ionescu. So you've brought an old team. And everyone being like genuinely, I'm seeing people like, or teams are like, the biggest dynasty of all time doesn't need rebuilding, it's retooling. It's like, what do you mean retooling? You screwed over Alyssa Thomas 4 years ago because you wanted to bring players that shouldn't have been brought. So it's this big thing about her making her first Olympics. She should have been there 3 years ago. Like, Team USA women have a history of bringing worse teams than they should to the Olympic Games. They have a history of favorites. Gino Auriemma did it for years. If you went to UConn, you were getting picked. If you were even somewhat similar level-wise to a non-UConn player, the UConn player would make it every single time in the Gino days. Heck, Breanna, as great as Breanna Stewart was in college, she literally made Team USA over the MVP. Nneka was the MVP. And they championed that year. And Stewie made it over. So they're no strangers to this. And it's not going to affect them in this Olympics because their bench is so good, but it's going to affect them eventually. Eventually. Because in the men's, it's an exception now, but the world will catch up in the women's. Just like it did in the men's. Might be 15, might be 20 years from now. It might be the next Olympics. There's going to be a team that's comparable. And when I mean comparable, there's going to be a team that skill level, you're not going to beat them by showing up, which I think Team USA think they can do. And I think they probably can do at this Olympics. You're not going to beat teams by showing up. And if by just adding two sentiment players, I don't think any of the... Like, people are saying they're going to bring Chelsea Gray in 4 years' time. That she's going to be one of the players to stay on the team. Like, she can't move now. What the hell is she going to do in 4 years? But if you start bringing teams based on sentiment, if the men's team did that, and they didn't bring a team based on ability, and let's just say LeBron, KD, and Steph were aging like normal players. I'm trying to think 3 players the same age that age like humans. If they brought Carmelo Anthony, let's say he was like hanging on the NBA. If they brought Melo, if they brought Blake Griffin, and if they brought... I'm trying to think of who was really damn good. And Derrick Rose. If they brought those 3 players and decided to start the 3 of them, they would have probably lost 1 to 2 group games. And that is almost what the equivalent of it is. Whereas like Taurasi's a good WNBA player, maybe not as to the extreme of that, but that's all she is. She's a good player, but she's getting played over all world players. Chelsea Gray is injured. She can't run. Not saying she's a bad basketball player, but made this very clear from the start. Your criticisms of Chelsea Gray have nothing to do with her. They have nothing to do with how she's playing, because the fact that she can barely move and is still playing at a mediocre level is madness. Like, that's impressive. But it's not her fault that Cheryl Reeve picked her for the team. They should have done what the men did with Kawhi and saw that she was hurt. Even if you want to bring Ariel Atkins and just go, screw it, we don't need a point guard. Like they did when they noticed Kawhi was a little bit injured, and they just said, okay, we're not bringing Kawhi anymore. They should have done that with Chelsea Gray when they saw her for the Aces. I know she's helped the Aces win, and she's been great, but she still hasn't been able to move for them either. There's now a point guard. You replace her with literally any point guard in the WNBA, and it would be the same outcome. But the big thing for me is that they're going to continue to start. They have scored 4 points between them. 4 points between them in 3 games. They have 4 points between them. Like, that's just unacceptable. It's unacceptable to continue to start them and continue to play them above more deserving players, because it's disrespectful. It is disrespectful to the sport of basketball. If you look at other teams, everyone being like, oh, it's so point difference is so important for the Sabrina shush shot. Oh, they're doing it for point difference. If point difference matters, Chelsea Gray and Diana Taurasi would already be on a flight back to America, and there wouldn't even be an option to put them on the floor if they actually gave a damn about points difference. They're putting players on the floor and starting 2 players that harm their team, because they know it doesn't matter how much these 2 harm our team, we're still going to win anyway. And that is an attitude that's not going to work long term. The first time there's a team even remotely close to them talent-wise, I don't know when that'll be, but it'll be sooner than you think, but also not this year. They're going to lose with that attitude. But also, it's just disrespectful to basketball. It's disrespectful to the other teams that you are not even, that you're going out with a weakened team against them. You're going out with a weakened starting lineup against them. Look, you're still going to get killed by them. But where's the respect in that? Where is the respect in actively handicapping your own team going into games? There's none. So I just strongly dislike what they've done. And look, I'll put my hand up. I was the first person when LeBron James was announced as a guaranteed starter, based on how he played in the NBA season, and being like, they cannot start LeBron James out of sentiment. This is not right. And there is no one that has proved me more wrong than LeBron, because he's been arguably the best player for that Team USA team. But if he was playing poorly, if he was playing at the level for his position as Embiid is, and he was still starting, that's not good either. You play your best team. You play a team that's going to win you a game. You don't play a team on sentiment. And that's the one thing I really hate, is that she's continuing to play teams on sentiment. 3 of her starters have been... Fee was decent today, but the 2 worst performers on the entire team are the 42-year-old and your point guard who can barely move. She's that badly hurt. We knew this coming into the Olympics. We knew this coming into the All-Star game. And albeit Taurasi was really good in that game. We knew this. But it doesn't matter. They still are starting because... Why? Because point God, and we're getting Taurasi her 6th medal. No, get Taurasi her 6th medal. Guarantee her 6th medal. Sit her on the end of the bench. If Taurasi wants her 6th gold medal, you should guarantee it by sitting her on the end of the damn bench. That's what you should do. Anyway, that's the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.